Hi, Dr. Reagan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
You can pay probably for the entire office with 2 or 3 cases because you not only think that insurance is going to pay you and also not disallow that if you're in network, but also the amount of time savings and payroll reduction from not having to fight these denials is huge.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices Podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Investment Grade Practice. I have the honor of being with Dr. Travis Campbell, who loves all things dental insurance. Travis, welcome.
Well, thank you, Victoria.
Can you give our listeners a little bit of background? You are a dentist, and you are a dentist who loves helping others navigate this web of dental insurance. Can you tell us what got you really excited about that topic?
Wouldn't say it started out as excited, it started out as frustrated. We do all this hard work and dentistry is not easy. And then, there's so many barriers and hiccups and myths and everything else that I think are the biggest reasons dentists are struggling. And so I looked at trying to find the answers. I went to Dental Town and Facebook and a lot of others. And back then when I was starting, there wasn't a lot of resources out there. And a lot of the resources were giving information that didn't seem to match up or didn't seem to work. And so I just started doing a lot of trial and error and, reading into contracts and state laws and things like that, and realized most of what, at least I was told, was not only wrong, but the exact opposite of the truth. Mm-hmm. And when I started realizing what can be done, our practice grew a lot better, and we made a lot more profitability for the same amount of work, and we started to really do well. And after that, it was, people started to hear what I was doing and started asking questions, and that just led into, starting to keep a database of all the questions that I answered, so I didn't have to type them out twice, which led to a book, which led to the website, which led to me, I guess, being everywhere. So, yeah.
I would expect nothing less from a Baylor graduate.
Okay.
Texas just seems to grow some really great dentists.
I'll go with that.
Yeah. Tell us about your practice.
So I actually got 2, but only one I work in. So I started it when I graduated 15 years ago. It's in Prosper, Texas, just north of Dallas. I don't know, we've been there for a long time. It's right on the highway. Expanded a few years ago, and then a couple of years ago I hired an associate so I could go part-time, but that office has been doing really well. We're basically one dentist, and so I'm doing somewhere between 2.5 and 2.7 million a year in collections. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and things like that. And then the second office I bought as a associate/partner driven office, and that was back in 2019. Perfect timing, right before all sorts of stuff happened. But it's doing really well. We've got a great partner in there, and she's growing it nicely.
That's awesome. Thank you for being willing to share that background. It's really important as we talk about, building an investment grade practice, that everybody understand the background of the guests that I bring on. So you're highly successful in your own practice. I love, before we aired, you said, yep, I'm working 2 days a week. You and Dr. Barrett, although your personalities are somewhat different, your mindsets are really similar. And you're going to trade time or money, and how do you balance all of that to get You can have it all, but it takes a bit of systems being in place, right? And having the right KPRs and budget versus actual, and understanding how things work. So today, I'm excited that you can give us some insights into how to manage this beast we call dental insurance. Um, what are some of the common mistakes that you see happening on a day-to-day basis? Things that could really cost the practice thousands of dollars.
I- the biggest one is a lack of efficiency,
Mm,
and mostly in terms of denials. So I see the complaint all the time in lots of different arenas of people complaining that their cases are getting denied, and yet a lot of times they're not looking at what they're doing. They're just complaining about the insurance company. And don't get me wrong, I got lots to complain about the insurance company. Denials rarely are the problem. And again, this is one of those things that I had to kind of trial and error and things like that. But it all comes down to documentation. I mean, the insurance companies want basically to prove you did a service and that it matched their policy benefits and that it was actually done. And so many times when I see people post complaints, crowns, scaling of root planning, whatever it is, I look at what they post. I'm like, as a dentist, I exactly see why you're doing this. But if I'm looking at this from an insurance point of view, I exactly see why they denied it too. And it's not that it couldn't have gotten approved, it's that there needed to be more documentation or better documentation or different timing of the documentation in order to get approval. And so, I hear it all the time, things like, oh, core buildup is just a part of a crown. Well, no, that's what the EOB says, but that's really an incorrect statement. It's your documentation didn't prove that you need a buildup and that was done. And
mm,
that's what people need to hear. And so the number one thing I talk to people about is when it comes to denials, is stop thinking that the insurance company is the problem, or at least the problem with that, and start thinking, what can I do different to make this case clearer or whatever dentist or reviewer is looking at it?
So go down the path of that. What could a dental office do, just in that one example, to make the need for a core buildup more visible to the payer?
Number one is an intraoral photo. I can't imagine we're in 2023 and people still don't have them in every operatory. And of course, don't get me wrong, like 15 years ago, I bought one and they were like $6,000 and they worked somewhat okay. And, they had a lot of errors. Well, now they're $300 and they work so much better and the pictures are better. And so I can buy an entire office worth of intraoral cameras for less than what I used to buy them like one for 10 years ago and
Remember
get a
that?
better result. So
That's right.
literally every op needs one, hands down, no question.
So
Number
did
one
you
thing.
have the kind that was on the great big AV cart you had to roll it in? I think that was my first intraoral camera.
No, I don't think I had that one. I had maybe it was a DigiDoc because I was already with Dexys, and I mean it wasn't a bad camera. It's just today the technology is so much better.
All right, so you can pay for an intraoral camera with one core buildup, two core buildups, right? Like just
Yeah, absolutely.
get it. Okay. Give us
Well,
another.
here's the other thing: you can pay probably for the entire office with 2 or 3 cases because you not only think that insurance is going to pay you, and also not disallow that if you're in network, but also the amount of time savings and payroll reduction from not having to fight these denials is huge.
I love that. Well, and it's an educational tool for the patient, so I would think that it helps with case acceptance as well.
Absolutely.
All
And
right.
then, of course, you think about post-op, the dreaded patient comes in, my tooth hurts because you touched it, doctor. And then you look at it, well, let's pull up the photo. You put it on a big screen TV, a picture of a big, massive black cavity, and you don't have to explain anything. The patient's like, whoa, that was my tooth. Okay, conversation ends. It's what do we do? As opposed to, complaining that's your fault.
Wow.
So I tell people too that, because I get it, is, people ask, well, why do I need to invest in this stuff? Why do I need to do anything different? It's the insurance company that's the problem. I'm like, well, okay, great, but I would have them anyway for patient
Well,
communication.
I love that. I love that. I mean, can you give us another example? Because what you're sharing with me just sounds like best practices for comprehensive care. I, I
That's
want.
not much different.
Okay.
Scaling and route planning.
Ah,
So you need a full perio chart. And yet it's amazing. And I was guilty of this too. When we go through dental school, I think they teach us enough to be dangerous, but teach us enough to also screw up a lot. Um, and the challenge is that almost every SRP claim I've seen denied, the perio chart's not even complete. I'm sitting here going, okay, well, you just broke AAP guidelines, which is why the insurance company can legitimately say, we're not paying for this case because you didn't even technically truly diagnose it yet.
Right.
And so, yeah, full perio charts, bleeding and probing, clinical attachment loss, everything is required, not just pocket depths. If you have a pocket depth perio chart, then you're just going to get denied all the time.
Not to get into brand names, but is there like an automated system that you like? Do you have any tricks or tools to help hygienists be more efficient in this? Because
I have a few of them. They're called Sarah and Jade, and what are all of my other assistant names? No, I do it by hand, like human. And I don't know why. I know there's systems out there. My hygienist just never wanted them, need them, like them, whatever. But we also use the assistant to help with a lot of other things, insert in the computer, get the treatment plan in there, go talk to the treatment planner about getting it started. What was the patient's concerns already? There's a lot of communication that can happen with having a human that handles that and other aspects.
So you have an assistant that is like a hygiene coordinator or works in the hygiene department?
Yep.
I love that. I love that so much. I practiced clinically for 15 years, and my most enjoyable years were the two different configurations. One, I had 2 operatories and an assistant, and I booked my scaling and root planings like right before or right after lunch, so I wouldn't be rushed around. And I just double booked morning and afternoons. And my assistant was so efficient. They loved her way more than they loved me.
Yeah.
The other time is when I was the new patient coordinator and I got to see all the new patients. So it was a combination of new patients and periotherapy, but it's a different mindset of being a hygienist in those roles. It's being the advocate and the co-diagnoser and the educator, not. And I'm an okay technician, I'll get the calculus off, but boy, do I get so bored just poking and prodding at tartar. So I needed something a little different. Wow, thanks for those 2 great things. I mean, this is refreshing. I thought you were going to come in and start with D150 and codes and things like that, which are
And
important.
get into codes if you want. It's a little, I don't know.
Let's
Some
get,
people love it, some
I got
people
2
don't.
more. I got 2 more kind of big picture questions. Membership plans. I see a lot of talk about it. I see some adoption of it. How do you see membership plans playing a role coordinating with insurance? Is that a beneficial tactic for practices? Do you see a lot of that?
I do see a lot of discussion around them. I see a lot of people going to them. I see a lot of success with them. The one caution I would have with people is to think they're mutually exclusive with insurance. You get into potential fraud, you get into too many complexities. There's just no reason to connect them together. Plus, I think you lose one of the biggest benefits of a membership plan by allowing people to use both. And the big thing should be, hey, your insurance isn't all that effective. Let's get you off of insurance. So, by the way, we don't have to deal with it anymore. And the simplicity that comes from a cash patient is so much better that I think that's the biggest benefit of a membership plan is to get patients who hate their insurance and ideally mostly are paying out of pocket completely, like an employer's not helping, and going, look, stop paying the insurance company that much money. You can pay us less and get more out of it. And therefore you're not double dipping, you're not potentially intruding into fraud. And it's so much cleaner and so much easier.
So do not combine insurance benefits and membership
Nope.
plans.
Nope. Mutually exclusive. You can have one or the other, not both.
So if I were, and I love what you said. So let's say that I'm currently 70% insurance driven. This could be a tool that I bring in and then go after those lesser payers and start systematically cutting back and offering an alternative that keeps the patient in the practice.
Yes.
All right. This is going to take I'm going to throw a curveball question at you, which will take like 4.5 days to explain. But in a 2-minute recap, when I'm going off insurance,
Mhm.
What we're going into landmines here. What do I need to pay attention to? I don't just go in and start I might drop one and unintentionally drop six. So what happens?
Okay, so first you've got to look at your P&L because so many people forget the fixed and variable expenses in a dental office, and you have to cover your fixed expenses because everything after that's how you make a profit. And dental offices are so much higher fixed expenses than like every other business. But we also have almost zero variable expenses. It's usually like 13%. You got supplies and labs, and that's about it. So once you pass that fixed expense is the problem. So if you're going to drop insurance and let's say lose half of those patients, not even all of them, what income drop is that? And will that send you below um, your threshold of break even? And that's where I've seen people fail is they've dropped them before they're ready. So one is figure out if you're even ready for it. For two is I would say don't do it emotionally. You're driven a business, so make it a business logical decision. Um, I wrote an article a couple of years ago called Apples and Oranges, and it was about a fee for service dentist and a PPO dentist are going to look very different. They're going to talk to patients differently. They're going to use different amounts of time. They're going to have different types of customer service. They're going to use different labs. Almost everything's different.
Right.
So you can't take a PPO office and just start dropping plans and expect that to work without changing something. Because either you were just really hurting yourself on the profitability, like spending way too much on high-end stuff, but getting a low-end, payment for it.
Yeah.
Or you're going to end up pushing away not only your insurance-driven patients, but also your fee-for-service patients. So, it's a balance of making sure you're at the right practice. And I'll tell you, I went almost completely out of network and increased a little bit. And then I went back in network almost completely, and we doubled collections.
Wow.
So for me, I'm an in-network dentist because I want to sit here and talk about dentistry. I don't want to sit here and talk about your second cousin's wedding. I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't. So I'm just not that deep of a relationship builder. And I think most fee for service dentists, that's what it takes. Um, but we're highly successful. We're highly profitable as PPO. And so you just got to make what works for you work.
And what was the difference when you went out of network? I'm assuming because you thought there was more profit margin in fee for service, you got there and then you came back. What did you do something different when you came back?
So we signed up indirectly versus directly. So that's the umbrella plan concept, which I'm sure you were probably alluding to. If you sign a million different contracts and you start dropping them, other contracts will pick up those companies you dropped because you're not strategic about it. But if you're strategic about a whole kind of point or positive part about umbrella plans is that if you sign up for a high fee schedule umbrella plan, you'll get in network with lots of other companies, the companies you recognize, and yet have the high fee structure for all of them.
Hmm.
And it's actually less contracts, less paperwork. It's more annoyance because how to do it is a pain in the rear. But if you can do it, manage it well, oh my gosh, our fees went up by 40%.
Mm.
And so my in-network fee is only about a 15% discount for my full fee, which magically is about what our membership plan is. So pretty much all my patients are paying the same amount. And yet I'm labeled as in-network.
I love that in Neighborhood Smiles, when I bought those practices, a lot of them, I would say half of them were legacy fee for service, functional dentistry, cosmetic dentistry, deep relationships. So I've got, retiring baby boomer doctors being replaced by brand new grads.
Mhm.
So the first thing I did was brought insurance in because the service mix and the payer mix had to match. So we
Yes.
did retain a lot of the legacy patients and all of that, but those type of practices, much of that dentistry was already done
Mhm.
ready. So we needed that. And our rule was if there's more than a 20% write-off, we're below. But yeah, 15-20%, I love what you said. That's about what you would take for the membership plan. And our team is very good also about saying, you need $5,000 worth of work and you've got this $1,000 down payment. Let's finance the rest. Let's get all of this done. So I think this is such a bigger conversation in your total patient finance methodology, but it's a very powerful one.
Well, people forget insurance is just a form of financing.
That's
They
right.
put money on a premium. That premium gives them benefits later to use towards their out of pocket, which basically is a prepaid loan. I mean, and if you
Right.
don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. So all insurance is financing. So if you are trying to drop insurance, you need to increase financing options
Right.
and increase marketing.
Right.
Those are the two things. It's not oh, we just get to drop insurance and do nothing unless you have the one. I do have a couple clients occasionally that come to me and say, look, we're booked out 6-9 months. We have no cancellations. We can't get patients in. I just tell them drop tomorrow. Forget the fact that you're going to lose 75% of patients. It doesn't matter because that's what you need is you need to get rid of the low paying patients and forget the solutions.
Just
If you're
saturate.
trying not to lose patients, you got to plan it at least 6 months in advance because you
I,
have to talk to everybody
I
personally, no letters.
yeah.
Letters bother me.
Well,
They
and
don't
that's
work.
see, we have Productive Dentist Academy, but we also our sister company is Phoenix Dental Advertising, right? And all new clients, they come in, they're on PPOs, and they spend 0.05 to 1.5 on marketing. And they're like, I want to get off the PPOs. I'm like, great, let's up your marketing budget because right now you're paying 40% for marketing. Let's go up to 3, 4, 5, 6%. Let's get you the right type. Man, you're fascinating to talk to. Hey, one last question on dental insurance. If you're thinking about selling, so I'm going to sell in the next 6 months to a year, and I'm a Delta Premier provider, and the buyer has my understanding is they have a hard time getting that same status. So, do you have any solutions or ways to mitigate that potential drop in revenue?
Hope the buyer doesn't ask that question. I mean, that's your best bet. There is no solution for that one. I mean, for as much as people want to complain about Delta, yeah, and Delta causes problems. Delta has been for over a decade phasing out Premier. Like
Yeah.
employers aren't buying it nearly as much anymore. They're trying to save costs too. Premier plans cost more money. So they're really dropping people out of Premier on purpose.
Right.
Um, and
Retirement is one of those good reasons.
oh yeah. And of course I get the people that go, well, I got in. I'm like, yeah, you're probably in an area Delta doesn't have a lot of providers, and that's the one way they get more people. But if you're in a saturated area, if you're in California, if you're in New York, if you're in Chicago, I almost guarantee you're not getting a Premier plan. It doesn't matter how much you beg insurance. They say, we got 1,000 more providers than we need. We don't care. Take it or leave it. And that's what it is.
The delta between Delta Premier and the other plans that they are accepting providers in. So let's assume it's not in a saturated area, but
What's the fee difference?
yeah.
Oh, it depends on the area of the country. I mean, it fluctuates all over. It could be as much as 30 or 40%. So, I
Hmm.
mean, it's pretty significant. As for what the office needs to do when coming in, the buyer just needs to look at, and I would say this for any office they're looking at buying, what they can improve in the office. Is it the systems? Is it the collections? Is it the patient care? Is it the service mix? You got to find something to come in and improve on from a business aspect if you're going to go buy that business. Or you're buying it truly like a brand new house that you literally got to pick even the cabinet door colors, and you're going to pay a premium, but then you walk in and everything's perfect. You don't have to change a thing, but realize you paid more to get that. So it's a balancing act. Again, it's like buying a house. If you want to buy a house that's, having some leaks and challenges and it's under foreclosure and you're going to get it at a discount, well, you're going to have to come in and do some work to fix it up before it's worth. But I don't know about you, those are the offices I would want to shoot for to buy as an investor, is the offices that are failing, because I know I can come in and fix them,
Yeah.
and they're worth so much more.
As long as there's good bones.
Yes. So you need a good location, ideally a good team, a decent patient balance, but demographics are everything.
Yeah. I literally looked at one that had 3 operatories with saloon doors, like the old wooden saloon doors into the operatories. And
I mean, if you're offering alcohol to all your patients, then maybe,
I
but
know
that's interesting. Okay.
the uniforms are can girls and all of that, but I was like, man, I don't know. So I have found a few in my travels where I'm like, I don't even know if I could fix this. So
Hmm.
there's kind of a threshold there. All right, switching topics just a little bit, but you seem to be able to handle almost anything I throw at you. Talk to me about the medical billing within dentistry today. I see that kind of on the rise. What do you see happening there? What are some of the more popular procedures? What are some things we're overlooking?
Oh man, medical. I could spend 3 days talking about dental insurance. I could probably spend twice as long talking about medical. It's a whole different ball game, and yes, it's on the rise, but I think that's only because less than 0.1% of offices are utilizing medical insurance. So go from 0.1 to 0.2, and that's 100% increase. So yay. Uh, but the thing to realize, and this was our goal this year, was to really learn medical and deal with it and everything else. The upside is medical will pay for most dental procedures. The difference is they don't pay for the procedure, they pay for the why. And that's so completely foreign to dentists usually, because dentists, it's all about the procedure itself. Medical, it's all about the why and the story. So it's
Yeah.
not that you did a crown, it's that you replaced a tooth because they fell and broke it. And not only that, they fell and broke it doing something that would be considered medical, meaning like an accident or a sporting event. Or the fun part about medical is there's literally a code for everything. So you fell while playing Pokemon Go and broke your tooth. Well, there's actually a code for damage while playing
Oh,
Pokemon Go. It's crazy. So, I mean, for the 1,000 dental codes there's like 10,000 medical codes. And there's modifiers and there's diagnosis codes, and you've got to learn them all if you're well, at least all the ones that deal with us. So there's a few hundred dentists need to work with. But it's a whole different world too. Like your notes have to be different. The way you approach it has to be different. What you ask on your medical forms has to be different. You have to delve into their history a lot more, history of an accident, history of their disease, history of whatever it is. Because what you're trying to find is the link that makes it to where dental is caused by a medical problem. Caries is not a reason for dentistry getting paid by medicine,
uh,
but dry mouth
yes.
is a reason for caries, which is a reason to get medical to pay for it. So again, it's the story and the why, and that is a whole different world.
Now,
Now it will pay for almost everything.
when you say we've been focusing on this, you have not only your dental practices, but you have your dental insurance consulting firm. So when you say we, are you talking, which company are you talking about?
It's a good question. My office, my main office, this was our kind of trial run year for medical. My dental consulting thing, we stick to just dental because there are more knowledgeable people about medical out there. I just did it as can I know enough to be able to talk about it because I get the question a lot, and to truly see what would work. I mean, implants are a no-brainer, surgeries are a no-brainer, any kind of traumas are a no-brainer. Magic thing is scaling and root planing often will get paid, and if you can get that paid, all perio maintenances will get paid too because it's a sequela of a medical problem. The challenge is finding the original medical problem. So, do they have diabetes? Yes, great, slam dunk. Do they have dry mouth? Great, slam dunk. Are they just poor hygiene? Yeah, medical's not going to touch that. So again, it's the why.
So does this then support more of the oral systemic testing for salivary test and genetic testing and biomarkers and all of that?
So I actually know a couple of companies that make those. I know the owners, so they're cool people. I don't know if you know Tina, but she's awesome. Anyway, the coding side in dental, almost all of those codes are non-covered. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's codes, but that doesn't mean insurance wants to pay for them. Medical, they're almost always covered if you can find the medical crosslink code and a reason, again, for why you're doing it. So I think that's some big benefits. I think at some point in my lifetime, dental might get completely eaten up by medical and they'll combine. And I don't say that from a medical point of view or a dental point of view. I say it purely as a sales point of view on what employers are purchasing and what insurance companies are doing to get medical and dental sold. So it's merging at some point. The ADA's already created a modifier or a diagnosis box and a set of diagnosis codes because it's going that way eventually. Now, is it going to happen in the next 5 years? No, I guarantee not. Is it going to happen probably in the next 20? Yeah.
Boy, I love your point of view. One of the things that I stay attuned to is what's happening in the DSO markets and consolidation of dentistry. And there's quite a few, very subtly behind the scenes, but there's quite a few DSOs that are adopting medical electronic health records. They're moving more and more in that direction, preparing for, what'll probably be here in 10 years. It'll take 10 years to get ready for that or get swept up in the wave. It's coming. It is coming. And I have high hopes for, solo independent doctors. I think that's always going to be about 25-30% of our market. And we are fiercely independent and autonomous and all of that. And the groups are rising, and there's good reason for that too. Just economy of scale and the ability to negotiate some of this stuff that's coming down the pipe. Oh my God. Travis, what did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
I mean, I've spoken for like 2 days straight before, so it could be anything. It just means another podcast, right?
I think we're going to have to do 2 or 3 more. In the meantime, I know our listeners are going to want to get in touch with you. What is the best way for them to connect with you?
Dentalinsuranceguy.com. Become a member. It's super inexpensive. And there's a daily Q&A thing. So you post a question and I'm the one who answers them every day. So it's fun. But I get a lot of interesting questions. I also get a lot of the same questions over and over again. But man, that's the best way because there's so much information and value and stuff on that website already pre-generated. But
I was just scrolling along there today and I was like, ooh, I'm going to have to become a member. I want to know about this and that. You also do live events, your Practice Whisperer conferences, and you're coming out my way to Hawaii later in the evening. I can't believe that when you land in Oahu, I will be taking off and going to Dallas. So we're literally switching that weekend. So either you're going to have to come out early and I get to say hello, or I'll hang out in Dallas for a few more days and see you when you get back. But tell us about your live events and how I can find out more about those.
So that's practicewhisper.com/speaking, or just click on the speaking page. They are almost always about business and growth and profitability. I do focus somewhat on insurance there, but since almost everything insurance-wise is recorded online, I tend to focus more on the business aspects. The Hawaii one is a lot of fun though, because it's like a mini mastermind, and yet without what I would call the fluff of sitting there and complaining about what's going on. We're going to do all the complaints and hot seat stuff ahead of time. And therefore, the entire event's all about how to improve what their challenges were that they came in. But we're looking at improving collections. We're looking at improving the office. We're looking at improving profitability and how much money you get to keep when you take it home. And then as well as improving how much time you have in your life by being more efficient and therefore being able to do things like Bruce and I did of cut back to 2 days a week or things like that. And yet my income, by the way, when I cut back to 2 days a week, hasn't changed. It's amazing when you do it right. So it's just a lot of fun.
That being a productive dentist, running a profitable business, it's like one of those queen and witch sort of visual puzzles. Like you don't see the beauty queen until you see it. And once you do, you can't unsee it. And then you wonder why guys are working 5 days a week and killing themselves because there is a much, much, much easier, better way of doing things. Dr. Campbell, I have appreciated our friendship over the years. I'm so glad that you joined us here today. And you can bet we're going to have you back on this podcast. There's just too much to cover in too little time.
Sounds good.
Have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday.
You too. Great talking to you, Victoria.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.